Hey, welcome back to Inside Gaming Daily for Tuesday.
Oh, it's Transactional Tuesday?
Skewered.
I got another sign that the UK is about to crack down hard on the practice of loot boxes, which could have ramifications for the rest of Europe.
A commissioner there just released a pretty scathing report after interviewing dozens of children, weird, who play games like FIFA and Fortnite.
So yeah, it's the second time in about a month that UK officials have gone off about loot boxes, fam/sis. And this report is even more harsh than the last one. So yeah, they're escalating. It's like YouTube.
Yeah, it sounds like they came away concluding that the industry's business model exploits kids, and they have some pretty strong recommendations, like reclassifying loot boxes as gambling.
That's it. That's what we've been waiting for. So yeah, no big deal. It would just fundamentally change the entire business model for video games in a major market. I'm sure they'll be cool about that and just let it happen.
It's the latest sign of a country blowing the whistle on the practice of loot boxes, especially when it comes to kids.
Those sweet, precious kids. You just gotta suck all their money out. So let's dig into the report. Brian, hit us with the details. What are we looking at?
Yeah, this comes from Anne Longfield, who is the Children's Commissioner for England. Now, you might ask, what the hell is the Children's Commissioner for England? Well, good question. We got a little bit of a history on that. It was created in 2004 to, quote, represent the views and interests of children. So it's basically the public office equivalent of somebody think about the children.
Yeah, you might remember them from such famous publications as Homework Sucks a Big Donkey Dick and Why I Should Get McNuggets Right Now.
We have food at home.
I got a B+, you said we would.
She's the commissioner of You're Not the Boss of Me.
Kids, what do you guys want? Toys. What else do you want? I want to do whatever I want.
I'm the commissioner, not brushing my teeth. The commissioner is independent of the government, but has the power to gather evidence and conduct research into issues that affect children's lives. Basically, their job is to champion the interests of kids to lawmakers and the general public, and to push lawmakers to make changes.
So as part of that role, Longfield compiled a report called Gaming the System. And by that title alone, you know it's not going to be very friendly to the industry.
I like system for gaming, my PS4.
Love that old girl.
It's based on interviews they did with a group of 29 kids ages 10 to 16 who play a variety of video games.
The report categorized them into various groups. I mean, how many? There's only really one kind of gamer. Anyway, depending on the game
Racist.
they played. Yeah. They were Minecraft players, Call of Duty players, along with FIFA, Fortnite, and Roblox. You forgot sexist.
The report says that 93% of all kids in the UK play video games. And while it found that there's a lot of benefit to playing games, like developing strategic and creative skills, there are also drawbacks, especially when it comes to the dreaded in-game purchases.
Ooh.
Almost every kid surveyed said they spent money on in-game purchases, whether it was cosmetics in Fortnite or for better players in FIFA's Ultimate Team mode.
So yeah, the study said that loot boxes can lead to kids spending hundreds of pounds and leaving children feeling like they are gambling.
And gaining hundreds of pounds.
My man.
So they asked kids about why they bought in-game items for particular games like skins in Fortnite, and this is really interesting because I think it hits an aspect of loot boxes we don't really touch on that often. Brian, what did the kids, those sweet, dumb, idiot kids say?
Yeah, so they told researchers that basically nobody wanted to have a default skin because they didn't want to seem uncool or a poor kid, which is kind of sad. But yeah, they found that there's a lot of peer pressure from other kids to have the coolest looking character, basically just like adult life.
It's interesting, a lot of games do leverage that kind of social pressure to make people feel less than if they don't dump a lot of money to it. Yeah, so as one 15-year-old put it, you don't want to be the one left with no skins. I bought 40 to 50 skins and a battle pass just so my friends would accept me.
I
put in that last part myself.
Mr. Skin.
Ooh. We had to figure out who would host this episode because there are a lot of people who aren't allowed to talk about children or even be around them. Connor has somehow squeaked through, but with statements like that, it won't be long.
I got my card in the mail yesterday.
Those are the glasses you see when you see somebody introducing themselves as having moved into the neighborhood.
As for games like FIFA, one 14-year-old named Lee, these are all pseudonyms by the way, there's nobody really named Lee out there, said they spent at least 150 pounds on packs this year. Lee told researchers, I never get anything out of buying packs, but I still do it.
Headline, 14-year-old figures out life.
Some kids who play FIFA also told researchers that they often open player packs in groups, whether in person or while in some sort of group or party chat like Discord.
That's kind of nice.
I mean, that makes it more exciting, they said, because everyone can compare what they got. It also creates peer pressure cycles that encourage kids to buy more than they normally would. If everyone else is opening packs and you're the dirty, stinky kid who can't afford them, you're just not part of the group.
Another player, a 16-year-old named Nick, said he buys between 12 and 15 packs at a time and said, quote, you feel like it's a waste of money, and then you open more.
I mean, they are talking like addicts. That's the scary thing. So yeah, some children, according to its study, spend more than 300 pounds in 1 year, and they reported feeling peer pressure to do so from friends, online strangers, and famous gaming YouTubers. It's happening. I have long felt frustrated that people who promote that kind of stuff feel no shame in the fact that they are pushing it to kids. Kids, We just want to go on the record here as saying, don't spend 300 pounds a year in loot boxes. Be a filthy casual. I mean, the poor kids in school were the hardest motherfuckers. Just carry a brick with you and no one will say anything. So the study also says that the design of some games encourages spending. Wow! It specifically mentioned FIFA, where it said that children can either improve by investing significant time to build up their squad or spend money in the hope of quickly advancing their position.
It added that, quote, with new editions of FIFA being released every year, children feel as though there is an expectation and pressure to buy new players, spend money, and build up their team as quickly as possible. The report concludes by saying that, quote, if gaming is an online extension of children's offline lives, then the rules should stay the same.
I went on to say, given that gambling is not allowed in children's offline lives, its presence in their online lives requires close attention. If there are concerns around exposure to gambling at an early age offline, then those same concerns should be translated into the online world. Thank you. That is the principle by which we don't let kids consume violence and sex. So why is gambling okay?
So you're saying that we should let children drink and have sex and all the other things too?
We need cooler children. Children are wieners. They're dumb little wieners who don't know how to good or shoot guns.
Brian, the commissioner also had some things to say, right?
Yeah, so they kind of summed up by making a number of recommendations, like limiting how much players can spend per day, basically capping it, and also by default, just turning off the in-game spending option for kids. So seems like a pretty no-brainer stuff. They also called for games to have a warning label if they have in-game spending, and here's the big one. They said that the government should amend existing laws to regulate loot boxes as gambling.
That's the big one.
Mighty big.
Yeah, laws.
Large.
That's a large recommendation.
Heavens, I got the vapors, that's such a big one.
So yeah, it won't be easy, obviously. The study acknowledged that there are a number of hurdles to classify loot boxes as gambling.
First of all, it brings in a ton of money.
Hey!
Ta-da! The report estimated that the current loot box market is worth about 20 billion pounds worldwide, with 700 million pounds of that in the UK.
If only it were some goofy moon currency, we'd actually know what that means.
Quid.
Yeah. Also in the UK, the current gambling laws don't seem to include loot boxes because they define gambling as playing a game of chance for a prize, with a prize being defined as money or money's worth. And theoretically, a player in FIFA or a skin doesn't have any monetary value. But to these kids, it has more than monetary value, which is interesting. Yeah, it's been argued that since loot box prizes can't be exchanged for cash, then they don't meet the definition of gambling.
But the report argues that loot box rewards can be cashed out on illegal third-party sites. On illegal third-party sites. What's more, it says that even if they're not worth actual money, loot box rewards are still valuable to the players because they help them win games.
Yeah, as the report put it, simply winning the game is enough to persuade some children to spend enormous sums. Gambling laws need updating to reflect the reality of children's experiences of spending money within games. So yeah, the UK is apparently not a big fan of loot boxes, as if any country really is. It's just sort of something we all deal with. I mean, even the kids were like, I hate it, but I do it.
And it's part of a larger trend that we've talked about as countries around the world are taking a closer look at the practice.
I mean, we bring up Belgium and the Netherlands pretty often. What's up with them, Brian?
We've reported that they found that loot boxes violate their own gambling laws. The Netherlands banned them after the Dutch Gaming Authority ruled last year that some loot boxes could be classified as gambling, specifically those in FIFA 18, Dota 2, PUBG, and Rocket League.
Same thing, in 2018, the Belgium Gaming Commission found that loot boxes were, quote, in violation of gambling legislation and ordered them removed from games in that country or risk fine and prison time.
Interesting to note, you would get double the fine or prison time if kids were affected.
Hell yeah! So yeah, that came after the Belgian Commission investigated FIFA 18, Overwatch, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and Star Wars Battlefront 2.
So in both cases, there was a governmental process that preceded the ban, similar to what we're seeing now in the UK.
Oh, the UK would be the biggest country to ban loot boxes, and obviously it could have severe consequences for the practice, especially since FIFA is a big deal there, and boy does that rake in a lot of loot box cash.
And there seems to be growing momentum to do so. The UK Commissioner's report comes about a month after a committee of lawmakers issued a report calling for loot boxes to be banned for kids.
There's a lot of noise around it. Yeah, in general, the industry has defended loot boxes, or specifically the ESA has, because they're jerks, specifically comparing them to more innocuous toys like Kinder Eggs or Hatchimals.
Surprise mechanics. Woo! But some of the big publishers and console makers have also said that they'll start disclosing the odds of what's inside.
Yeah, they're just trying to get away with the minimum amount of disclosure necessary. But at the same time, we're also seeing signs that developers are actually getting pretty sophisticated at finding out who the big spenders are in a game and thus targeting them directly.
Yeah, recently at the Game Connect Asia Pacific Conference, one CEO made headlines for his comments about spending in mobile games.
This got a lot of eyebrows raised. This came from Henry Fong, who's the CEO of the Chinese mobile publisher and developer Yodo One. He talked specifically about one of his company's games, Transformers Earth Wars, and he said they have one player who spent over $150,000 in the game.
Sorry, what's that in pounds? pounds.
Yeah, that player is known as a whale. Somebody's willing to spend tiers and tiers higher than everyone else.
Like real whales.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is in mobile circles, like the whale economy, which is making a game depending on whales, has always been talked about with an element of shame. No longer. Fong said they developed a bot who can spot potential whales with about an 87% accuracy. But then the CEO added, we think we can get it up to about 95%. So there's evidence that some publishers are actively encouraging this kind of behavior and trying to target people who might have a problem. Same old shit. So yeah, it's not a great look when you have governments in major countries looking at your business model and basically saying they're preying on those sweet, soft children.
Despite all the negative publicity about overly monetized games, they're still selling really well.
I think that's the important thing to recognize here. Just look at NBA 2K20. It is chock full of microtransactions and even has an actual slot machine. Woo! It's been savaged in user reviews on Steam and elsewhere. It's also the best-selling game of the year here in the United States, which means that as much as people hate these mechanics, or rather I would say the gamers out there, the core people who are following the industry, it's still not enough to keep some groups of people from buying them. I mean, huge groups. Basically, once you break mass market, it just gets out of the realm of people who watch Inside Gaming and actually care about these issues.
Hey guys. So at this point, legislation may be the only way to rein in some of the worst practices of the industry.
And I think some people are catching on to that. We are seeing some big franchises like Call of Duty, Destiny 2, and others start to shift to more of a battle pass system, something that's a little less random draw.
Which could be a way to get in front of possible legislation like we're seeing.
I think that's a better option, at least for people who, it preys less on certain parts of the human brain. However, I feel like once battle passes get elegant enough and sophisticated enough, then people will just be playing 20 hours a day, trying to grind out all those rewards and stuff. So we might be biting off a different problem, at least in some way that's less damaging than actually draining people's bank accounts or conditioning them to really enjoy the thrill of gambling before their minds are mature enough to really understand the consequences of those decisions.
Anyway, I just moved into the neighborhood and I'm required by law to tell you that.
Contrary to rumors, there will be no loot boxes in the upcoming Modern Warfare.
We hate those loot boxes, huh?
We did it, boys. We did it.
What do we hate? We hate loot boxes.
We hate them.
We hate, I guess,
Politics and games.
Last of Us 2.
Blah.
We have to hate now, right?
What? We do?